Well, I'm not a crook.
We are Candor Talk Live, the new progressive raw talk show discussing current hot political and social topics. The host is DICESI, www.candortalk.com.
All right, good evening. Actually, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I actually did a show last night, and I realized after the entire show that none of it had actually taped. And I'm actually kind of glad that it didn't tape because there's actually a way bigger story now than what I was actually going to talk about before, and what I actually talked about before in the previous show. But anyway, good morning, I should say. It is actually 3 o'clock in the morning, and this is Candor Talk Live, and I'm your host, Dicey. And I felt like it was imperative that I do a show today because we just attacked Syria. And there needs, for you to understand everything I'm about to say, I need to make sure that I give you some of this background information. This was brewing in the pipeline for a while, for a day or so, and people started to believe that we were going to attack Syria, because what had actually happened was there was a gas attack against Syrian civilians, where women, children, babies were killed, or just completely devastated, emotionally, health-wise, etc., mentally. Some of them actually had to watch their family members die. But the problem I have right now is that literally this happened, what was claimed happened like 2 days ago. Now it's 3 days because it's the 7th. And then all of a sudden it goes from Tuesday, this is what happened allegedly, and this is what happened in Syria. We know that there definitely was a gas attack. We just don't know who did it. This is what happened in Syria, basically, to all of a sudden, these are the people who caused what happened in Syria, and we're just going to go and bomb. We literally just bombed Syria, everybody. We just bombed it. And it is so shocking to me that this actually transpired, because I don't understand what Donald Trump was actually thinking. Now, if you hear some of the stuff that he was saying previously, before he ran for president, because some of the clips I was going to play before had to do with it's showing you and explaining to you that we are about to bomb, or we're about to attack Syria. Then we attack Syria. So there's no point in playing the clips I was going to play before, but there are some clips I still do want to play, because I think it's important that people understand why this is so enraging to me, and it should be enraging to anybody, and especially Donald Trump supporters. This is Donald Trump during the election season, when he was just a nominee. I'm so tired, but nominee. This is what he said during the election season when he was still a nominee. Listen to this clip.
President, I will make it clear that the United States will treat cyber attacks just like any other attack. We will be ready with serious political, economic, and military responses. Military responses. Military responses. Military responses.
That's a pretty fundamental decision that certainly I'm not going to make.
We have done a tremendous disservice, not only to the Middle East, we've done a tremendous disservice to humanity. The people that have been killed, the people that have been wiped away, and for what? Do whatever you want. You call it whatever you want. I want to tell you, they lied. Okay. They said there were weapons of mass destruction. There were none, and they knew there were none. We cannot be the policemen of the world. We desire to live peacefully and in friendship with Russia and China. Unlike other candidates for the presidency, war and aggression will not be my first instinct. Our goal is peace and prosperity, not war and destruction. I will never send our finest into battle unless necessary, and I mean absolutely necessary. We are always happy when old enemies become friends, and when old friends become allies. That's what we want. We want them to be our allies. We want the world to be ours. We want to bring peace to the world. Too much destruction out there. We must make America respected again. We have to, and we will. make America great again. And if we do that, perhaps this century can be the most peaceful and prosperous the world has ever known.
Okay, you just heard all that, right? These are the things. These are repeated statements from Donald Trump during the campaign season, and you heard Hillary Clinton at first because Hillary Clinton was painted as this war hawk, this warmonger, this person who was going to lead us into all these wars because she voted for the war in Iraq. And I'm not going to deny she would have done probably worse than what Trump just did right now. So I'm not going to, in terms of waging war. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend like, she wouldn't have done this. But the problem is that you heard Trump consistently saying he will not do this unless it has to be the option of last resort. You've tried everything else, you've exhausted everything else, and now all of a sudden, there's nothing else you can possibly do. And so you have to wage war. He didn't even wait. It was 2 days after they found out what had transpired to find out exactly who had done it. There's conflicting reports saying that Assad and them are saying, we did not do this. And then, the United States is saying you did do this. And Russia's saying, from what we know, you didn't do this. And I'm not going to take the side of Russia. I could just never take the side of Russia. But I do believe that there was not enough information yet to go in and just start bombing a sovereign nation. This is an independent country. This is a country that has its own regulations and law. Can you imagine somebody doesn't like the things we're doing in the United States, and all of a sudden someone just something happens in the United States, like a police shooting or whatever, people get killed, and then all of a sudden they just decide 2 days later they're going to attack the United States? Would you be okay with that? We're a sovereign nation. They are a sovereign nation. They are a free nation. I mean, free in terms of the sense that they have their own borders and they have their own defined territory. The same thing you're crying for, the wall and all the other stuff, to define your territory, is because you know that you want to make sure that you're clear that there is our own nation. And now all of a sudden, here we go into someone else's nation and say, we think you did this, so we're going to bomb your stuff. And there's so many things that went wrong with that because there's so many different reports, and none of this, what I'm about to say right now, I'm not 100% confident these things have been verified. But there are reports that they didn't attack the areas where the chemical weapons came from Assad when they said that he used the chemical weapons. They didn't attack the area that it allegedly came from. They attacked an area in which allegedly the Syrian army was using to go after ISIS. And then there's also reports, because there's a lot of, misinformation out there, but there's also reports. There's a lot of misinformation and information out there, I should say. But there are also reports that there were also Russians that were killed. If there were Russians that were killed in this, we are going to be in another world war. There's no way Russia's not going to retaliate. They have to retaliate because the United States had no reason to do this. And on top of it, Donald Trump should have gone to Congress. He should have asked Congress's approval. You're hearing people like Rand Paul saying, no, you have to come to Congress. You're hearing people like Ted Cruz saying, no, you have to come to Congress. These are people. Rand Paul, like a week ago, was golfing with Trump, and now all of a sudden cannot believe that Donald Trump just did what he just did. And then you have people like MSNBC and CNN, all these people praising Donald Trump. These people are imposters and traitors. How all of a sudden are they praising Donald Trump? These are people who've been chastising him since he started running, because this whole chastising of him was so fraudulent. They always admired him. There is clearly this great adulation for him right now from the mainstream media, from conservatives who hated him at one point. Now all of a sudden, people like Bill Kristol and stuff are saying "great job" to President Trump. They have like Mark Levine and all these other people saying "good job" to him for doing this. John McCain and Senator Lindsey Graham, because they just want to go to war. Now we know Russia interfered in our election. At least that's what they tell us, and I believe our intelligence agencies until I have any reason to believe that they didn't. We can't even focus as a country for 1 second on just whether or not that happened. Instead, we need to go and bomb another country because we want to deflect away from what was really going on in our own country. The fact that we had a failure in terms of our intelligence during the election season. The fact that our systems were able to be hacked. Those are the things that we should have been focused on. But no, instead, because Donald Trump had plummeting approval ratings, he decides he's going to go and try to make himself what? Another George W. Bush? Ensure yourself a second term by going to war? Because who wants to come and take over and people are going to let you finish the job? We weren't attacked. This is not 9/11 where George Bush was able to get some sympathy because you were able to say, Americans were attacked. We were not attacked here. We weren't attacked. And so then all of a sudden now, Donald Trump decides, okay, we're going to go and we're just going to go and attack them. Now, even though they're saying that it was more symbolic of a gesture or whatever, because it's not necessarily going to stop anything in Syria. It was really just him trying to show people that he can be strong. But people died in a mission that had no real purpose. And his own base told him not to do it. They told him beforehand. There was literally a hashtag on Twitter called Syria hoax. They told him repeatedly, do not do this. Don't do it. We reject this idea. We don't want a war in Syria. All this stuff. I just can't believe that he went forward with it. Listen to one of his supporters, one of his stone cold supporters, talking to him basically before this happened. Put out a video on Twitter, basically trying to reach Donald Trump and tell him, don't do it. Listen to what this person says to Donald Trump. Listen.
To Trump, President Trump, was a little harsh, and I cursed in it and everything. But you know what? It was true, and it was passionate because I was in the moment and I was very mad. Why? Because I busted my ass along with my fellow veterans and all the Americans here to defeat the mainstream media and the deep state that is trying to destroy you even now, to put you in power, to make America great again. Not make the Middle East great again, but to make America great again, putting our interests first. We have no interest in Syria. We have no interests anywhere in the world. We need to focus on our own country. And you're being distracted and duped. It's so obvious. It is blatantly obvious how ridiculous this narrative is and how fake it is. They lied about your taxes. They lied about Russian collusion. They lied about the DNC rigging. They lied about everything, and you're falling for this. Now they're telling the truth about Syria. Now, magically, just for you. And you know why? A lot of us voted for you because you're supposed to be the no-war candidate. Hillary would have got us to war already. You know that. But then here you are, 4 months into your administration time, and you want to consider military action? That's what you want. You shouldn't consider anything. What you should have said was, listen, something bad happened. We don't know what's going on. Let's wait. Instead, you say Assad did it and all this other crap. How do you know he did it? Your intelligence told you? Oh, the same intelligence who said Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. The same intelligence that has thrown over Libya and taken over and got rid of Gaddafi. The people that you said were bad but weren't that bad. Now you're being a hypocrite. Now you want to go invade Syria or do something, military action, and we'll see. We don't have time to see. You work for us, Mr. President. We voted for you because you were supposed to take care of us. None of us want to go to Syria. Go ask any person in the street, do you want to go to Syria? The answer is no. Even if it was true, has nothing to do with us, and we know it's not true. Assad didn't gas anybody. It was the evil psychopath terrorists and the special interests who paid them to do it. And you should know that. You should know better than that. You write the art of the deal. You're supposed to be the strategic mastermind, but you're falling for the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Be smart and do the right thing. Put America first.
Okay, so there you go. There you have it. That is one of Trump's very strong supporters who is telling him before he goes and starts bombing Syria, do not fucking do it. Don't do it. What does he do? He does it. He does it. Now, you cannot just go and attack Syria and think that you did not just also attack Russia. Because what came out afterwards is now Russia is saying this was a violation of international law, and that this was based on trumped up charges, and they're very angry right now, basically. Okay, so part of me I'm of two camps. I'm of one of two camps, and I'm actually kind of split, in kind of in both. But one part of me says this is a coordinated thing between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin to get everybody to stop thinking Trump did anything with Russia. This is really just a diversionary tactic where, Russia comes out later after the attack and starts acting outraged, but Russia doesn't do anything about it. People don't think Donald Trump is Russia's puppet anymore. And then behind the scenes, they're working out deals to basically merge United States and Russia interests. And this kind of clears Donald Trump up and nothing ever has to get released. That is what is one theory I have. The other theory that I have is that Donald Trump just literally went rogue. He became erratic, and he was so emotional. He kind of got emotional over the situation, and that was the time that the neoconservatives and the neoliberals realized they could pounce on him. They saw that he was vulnerable, he was weak, and they told him, war, 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 war. Because, war, there's money. And with money, that's where Donald Trump likes to be. So what does he do? He decides, okay, well, let me just go ahead and bomb Syria. And people are going to be happy with me. He didn't care for 1 second that his base had told him consistently, do not do it. His base has been up literally all night, like everybody else who's concerned about Syria and what he just did. They've been up all night condemning him. From the white nationalists to the, moderate Republican, they are condemning the hell out of him for what he just did because they told him, do not do this. And the thing is, you cannot just be like, these poor innocent children, these poor kids, he had no other choice. No one is saying that he shouldn't have done something. No one is saying that they want to see these kids be gassed. I mean, come on, those images are horrific. That's a terrible thing, and neglecting Syria any longer is a travesty. You cannot do it. But that does not mean that 2 days after something like that happens, something tragic like that happens, you prepare to just go and attack a sovereign nation without talking to Congress, without getting support from anyone. They're saying that he actually contacted Russia first, too. And that's why I have a problem with understanding. If he contacted Russia beforehand, Russia acting like they're outraged after the fact sounds a little bit suspicious. So we need to get to the bottom of that right now. But there's 2 stories out right now. That one, Russia's outraged, and then the other one that he contacted them first, which means they knew it was going to happen. Anyway, this whole thing seems a little fishy and suspicious to me. First is Steve Bannon, right? He's off the National Security Council, the day before they decide to start bombing Syria. That seems a little coincidental because one thing I can definitely say is that even though I despise Stephen Bannon, the one thing I can say is he probably told Trump, do not go to war. Don't do it. Literally 2 days ago, Donald Trump was literally saying, they're going to basically decide their own fate. That's basically the policy of Donald Trump. Syrians are going to have to decide what's going to happen. That was Tillerson, Secretary of State, and Donald Trump basically saying, this is basically Syria's problem. Then all of a sudden, a day later, you change your tone completely after I saw the babies and everything else. But those babies' images were there the day that you were saying Syria is going to have to figure out its own thing. And even if they weren't there at that time, you knew that they had happened before. That this is not the first time that something like this has happened. So all of a sudden now, a day and a half later, you change completely. You just do a complete 180, and all of a sudden, you are for taking action against Assad. And you go and start attacking his military arsenal because you think he did it. But you don't have proof. He's saying he didn't do it. Where's the evidence? You didn't even show the American people. You didn't even come to the American people and say, the United States is considering striking, Syria. No, I mean, look, I know that they could have gone and done this if there was a universal agreement in Congress with the president. They could have gone and just done this without talking to any American citizen. I get it. But you can't just unilaterally do these things that Donald Trump did. That's a dictatorship. That is not a constitutional republic. That's not what this is. This is not a democracy. This is not a free society where someone can just arbitrarily drag the entire nation into conflict without talking to the people who are going to have to live with that on their conscience. I don't want my conscience to have to live with the fact that we went and bombed another country and killed innocent people. How can we go and use the killing of innocents to go and kill more innocents? That is just a paradox. It doesn't make any sense. It's not a logical thing to do. But we just did that. That's what we just did. And you're hearing the mainstream media just in there gloating and excited because they're like, this is going to be fun, watching people die so we can report it. We'll get more ratings and ratings and ratings. They're such complete and total frauds. They're the worst people in the world. And honestly, it makes me so mad because the same people that were allegedly anti-Trump 3 hours before the strike were all of a sudden he's strong, he's forceful, this is what Obama didn't do. Oh, you're going to hear the narrative too. Obama didn't do, this is what Obama should have done, this is Obama's legacy is going to be defined by this, and Syria, Obama should have done this in Syria. You're going to hear that now. Now all of a sudden, Trump is this president, and President Obama made too many errors. It's typical. They're always waiting for a reason to blame President Obama. And this just gave them an opportunity to do it without making it look like it was their little subtle bigotry or subtle prejudices against President Obama. These fake liberals that are on there pretending like, they're about the cause, they don't give a damn. These people are making millions of dollars a year telling you a bunch of bullshit. That's why you need to come to shows like this, where we're going to tell you the truth. We're not going to feed you a bunch of bullshit. If you're a liberal or progressive, or you're just somebody who cares about the country in general, you should come listen to us. Now, we're supposed to be on every Saturday at 11 p.m. You can also check out our articles on candortalk.com as well. And we also write sometimes for Hub Pages. So you can see us on hubpages.com, and it's at DICESI, DICESI. Okay, so I had to throw that in there real quickly. So, but you need to come back and listen to us. We hope to be on every Saturday at 11. Because the mainstream media is just lying and lying and lying. I mean, look, it's just good to get real quick information from them and not watch them 24/7. They're just gossip, lying, disingenuous people. They're always trying to feed you a particular narrative and tell you a particular story. They're sitting here now, and the guy that they thought was a monster is now the greatest thing in the world because he did a monstrous thing, right? He did something that a monster would do, not something that a good human being would do. You're talking about you want somebody who embraces humanity, and all of a sudden you're supporting somebody who is literally destroying humanity. They don't like Trump all of a sudden because they think he's a great leader. They like Trump because they see money. They see ratings. They see advertising. That's what they see. And they see these businesses, because, war is so much money. These weapons companies and all stuff that building these bombs and all stuff, they're making billions of dollars a year off of our gullibility. So the thing is, I am so angry about this entire situation. And part of why I'm angry is because it's almost like we are just literally such an irrational country. Like, we have no ability to remember history or to digest it and comprehend it. I mean, it's just like we went to war in Iraq on the basis of false pretenses, where there was allegedly weapons of mass destruction. They were going to be attacking people with chemicals and all this other stuff. Never have they been able to find proof. They just wanted to overthrow Saddam Hussein and have a legacy because they thought their war was going to be the biggest legacy. He could say he did something with his presidency. That's all that was. But the truth is, you know what happened to us? You know what the casualties were for the United States? 4,486 U.S. soldiers had died in Iraq. That was as of 2014. And 2,345 U.S. soldiers died in Afghanistan. 1 million U.S. soldiers were wounded in both wars. 1 million. And it potentially cost over $6 trillion. $6 trillion. $6 trillion to ensure that we destroy historical lands like we did in Iraq. These are ancient lands that were destroyed. Ancient buildings destroyed. Civilians. Oh, you want to talk about the casualties, the civilian casualties also? Because, Iraqi citizens also died in the war in Iraq, in this bogus war in Iraq. And there's never been anyone held accountable for the fact that we went to a war on false pretenses, and false pretenses that even Donald Trump believes they knew were false. But Iraqis, they're saying anywhere between 151,000 to over 1 million Iraqis died in the war in Iraq. And what do we still have to show for it? Not one thing. Now that's just basically a binary war, right? It's just two groups going against each other. It's one, not necessarily binary, but it's just a dual party sides. Do you know what it's going to be like if we decide to move forward with going after Syria and after what we just did? This is going to lead to world war. There's no way you can continue to attack Assad's regime, who has the backing of Putin, and think you're not attacking Putin. And if you attack Putin, Putin's going to attack us back. And then what's going to happen is Syria is going to get involved, and then they're going to attack. And then next North Korea is going to get involved, and they're going to attack. And then next our allies are going to get dragged in and be brought into a World War II. And the next, a World War as well. Not World War II, but a World War II is in TOO. So that's basically where we are right now. right? So all of a sudden now we are looking at maybe being engaged in a world war. A world war. Do you want to know how many casualties there were in World War I? Let's talk casualties. The total number of military and civilian casualties in World War I was more than 38 million. There were over 17 million deaths and 20 million wounded. That's what happened in World War I. Did you hear that? 38 million casualties. 38 million. Not 38,000. 38 million. Not 3,800. 38 million. I mean, I need you to just let that digest for a second. Okay? That's World War I. World War II? They estimate about 50 million to more than 80 million died in World War II. Civilians killed totaled 50 to 55 million, including 19 to 28 million from war-related disease and famine. That is what war does to you. We go to war, we're going to be in the same situation we were during the Bush years. We are going to see an economic disaster. We are going to see our prices going up all over the place. Gas prices at $4 a gallon. You're going to start seeing milk and all this stuff going up to the point where people can't afford it anymore. You're going to see greater levels of poverty in our own country because what is going to happen is that this is not going to work out if we end up going after Syria. We're going to force other nations to have to get involved just like World War I and World War II. You just got to get involved because you have allegiances, you have alliances, you have people you're working for. There's interests that you have. We're going to force other countries to get involved now because we decided to unilaterally strike. And we strike, and then after we strike, subsequently Trump is like, okay, I want the rest of the world to join in forces so we can get rid of Assad. You didn't even want to do anything to Assad. Do you even know what Assad looks like? If Assad could walk right past Donald Trump, he wouldn't even know who he is. And so all of a sudden now you're ready to go bomb and kill and pillage and destroy an entire nation because you wanted to prove to your base that you were strong? You pissed off your entire base. And that's the thing that I don't understand about Donald Trump. I think he thinks that they'll be with him no matter what. They will not be with him no matter what. Some will. But there is a strong portion of especially that alt-right and white nationalists and pretend I'm not a white nationalist, but I am crowd. Those people aren't having it, right? Eventually, they are the people who are going to explode because they want him to deliver on certain things. They don't care about whether or not he's a good guy or a nice guy or whatever else. They could care less. They want him to deliver. And if he doesn't deliver, they're going to crucify him. This is not a good time for him whatsoever. Whoever told him to do this failed policy and to go and start striking and bombing another country is a disaster for him. They're saying the revolt on the Trump side is unheard of. I never would have thought this quickly we would get to this point. This guy hasn't even been in office for 100 days. He's already bombing another country, trying to create a war. Next thing you know, we're going to have an attack in our own country because they're going to try to justify a reason to go to full-scale war. And I'm not a conspiracist in terms of thinking that 9/11 was an inside job. I don't have any proof of that. But I do believe that this is such a 180 by Donald Trump in literally less than 3 days. He's changed his mind completely. And now all of a sudden you are ready to go to war like a neocon. I mean, what happened to you? And I feel sorry slightly for some of his supporters, but I think that they believed in him and legitimately thought that he was going to do some of the things he said he was going to do. But the truth is, he hasn't done any of the things he said he was going to do. He has so many broken promises. This what happened today should not surprise anyone, because he has said so many things in the past. And let me just give you a quick synopsis of the things he said in the past that make it clear that he had no intention whatsoever. None. Zero zilch intention of fulfilling any promises. He just wanted you to vote for him, get into office, get into power, and make his family much more rich. And you won't agree with me right now hearing those kind of comments. You're going to say you're a partisan hack and you're a liar and Trump's the greatest. But eventually you're going to realize you've been duped. You've been duped. Here's some of the things he said he was going to do. Prosecute Hillary. Right before the attack, like a couple hours before the attack, Hillary Clinton specifically said that he should attack the military bases or whatever. Trump attacks exactly where Hillary says he should have attacked. She was encouraging actual action in Syria. Right after that, he goes and attacks exactly what she said he should do. Not necessarily saying what he should do, but what she thought, generally speaking, should be done. And he goes and does it, which makes me think that they were... Either he's such a CNN, MSNBC, Fox News junkie that he saw it somewhere, or a Twitter junkie that he saw it somewhere and he said, okay, that's a good idea, I'm going to do it. Or they coordinated that. Like I said, there's two sides and that are in my head right now. I'm not really 100% certain. And like I said, I'm really tired, so I can't imagine. Then I come up with a very cogent and rational response on that. He said he was going to sue his accusers of sexual assault after the election. They haven't even been brought up, or a lawsuit against them has not even been brought up. He said he doesn't settle lawsuits, but then he settles Trump University for $25 million. Yeah, you weren't guilty of anything, but you settled for $25 million. I'm not saying that when you settle, there's been no determination about liability, but the bottom line is you don't settle for $25 million unless something's up. He said he will release his tax returns after the election. If he wins, he will release them. He's under a routine audit. He gets audited every single year because he always pivots to, this is unfair. Why do I always have to get audited? I asked my other friends, why don't they get audited? All this stuff. That was a punch of crock of crap. He knew that he was never, ever going to show his tax returns because something in those tax returns are disturbing. And something in those tax returns make me think, Russia. But nevertheless, he has never released his tax returns. He's not even releasing the ones for this year when he files, right? I mean, what, are you going to be an audit right away? No. So there's something definitely fishy about that. He said he will not be golfing when he becomes president. He has golfed, like, I swear, is he going to be Jack Nicholson or whatever? Like, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to be Tiger Woods? I mean, the guy is there every single weekend at taxpayers' expense, $3 million just to be able to make sure he goes back and forth to his little pet house. The thing that he calls the second White House, but is not the second White House. It's just his property that he uses to have business meetings and gain more membership to his own enterprise. Trump supporters, you're not seeing it right now, but you will see it. You are going to be forced to see it because he is going to backstab you so hard. He's already started. He's already shown you he does not care about you. And he can care less whether you're upset or you don't like what he did. He's going to do it regardless of how you feel about it. That's the guy you voted for. The guy who just completely and totally just let you down. He lied to you. He told you everything you wanted to hear. He also told you he was going to immediately repeal and replace Obamacare. Call that? That also failed. He said he was going to deport all the quote-unquote illegals. I hate that word illegals. It just, oh my gosh, it makes my skin crawl when I hear it. He said he was going to build a wall. I haven't heard much word from him about that wall. Excuse me. He said he was going to drain the swamp. I haven't heard anything about him draining the swamp. He's actually filling the swamp up with nothing but the worst. He said he was going to bring back coal jobs. And they don't see any coal jobs coming back or him talking about bringing them back other than standing up in crowds of people saying, we're going to get you back to work. We're going to get you back to work. Have you seen him actually do anything to make sure that coal jobs are coming back? Nope. He said that he would tear up the Iran nuclear deal on the first day he was in office. He hasn't torn that deal up at all. And then also DACA. He said he was going to get rid of it right away. The first day, I think he said, DACA's still there. Now, I have no problem with him keeping DACA or, Yeah, I have no problem with him building DACA, him keeping DACA, because I think that's good for the American people if that happens. Generally speaking, and for those dreamers, I think it's important. And the fact that he hasn't done it, but my point is a greater point. It's not that he, every single thing he's proposing is bad. It is that you haven't achieved shit since you've been in office, almost 100 days in office, and you haven't achieved a damn thing. People are starting to say, too, that they think that he's going to be impeached. I'm starting to think the same thing. I really firmly believing he's going to get impeached because I think he went too far with this one. I think he didn't think this one all the way out. And I think that he was given such bad advice. He followed it. And he's going to live to regret it. This is a political suicidal move. The only reason why Trump is insulated right now is because his base protects him. And the Republicans are so afraid what the base will do to them if they go against Trump. So they just suffer in silence. But he gave them the greatest level of ammunition to get away from having to deal with him by saying what he did was so improper. I said before in one of our articles that they were setting him up, that GOP was setting him up. And I still believe that could be a possibility too, that he was set up completely. And the reason why I feel like him being set up is a likely scenario. I mean, not necessarily a likely scenario, but him being set up is such a problem is because it wasn't like you couldn't see it coming. Like, you could tell there was going to be a problem here with him and those, neo-conservatives, neoliberals. You knew there was going to be a problem. But now we're all, like, just sitting there trying to figure out, like, how do we process what just happened here? We're going to be at war again and again and again. I'm starting to believe that we need term limits. The fact that people could have just allowed this to happen, I'm starting to feel like term limits actually make sense. But we're going to take a quick break right now. We'll be back from the break. And when we get back from the break, we will talk about the Republicans going nuclear in Senate and why, look, Democrats, chill out. Everything is going to be okay. Trust me. I'll be right back.
At a forum on depression, a young man said, "I think some people may have an inability to cope, and maybe this might sound a bit extreme, but that might be Darwinian theory. The Darwin theory of survival of the fittest. Maybe some of us aren't meant to survive. Maybe some of us are meant to kill ourselves." Now, why did this young man think that human life has such little value? Perhaps he'd heard people like Oxford professor Peter Atkins, who said, "We are just a bit of slime on the planet." Likewise, psychologist Susan Blackmore said, "If you really think about evolution and why we human beings are here, you have to come to the conclusion that we're here for absolutely no reason at all." What a stark contrast to the words of Jesus, who said, "I have come that they may have life and have it to the full."
To find out more from Creation Ministries International, visit our website, creation.com. Preview. Preview.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for staying with us. I am back from the break, and I'm your host, DICESI, and this is Candor Talk Live. You can also check us out on www.candortalk.com. We post articles on there. We post some of the shows on there. The show should be up tomorrow. Later today, actually, at some time on candortalk.com. But before the break, I told you guys that I was going to talk about what just happened today in the Senate with them confirming Neil Gorsuch. I think it's Gorsuch instead of Gorsuch. Essentially, Democrats and liberals were basically freaking out and going crazy. This is the end of the world. Democracy is over. This is a dictatorship. I can't believe they went nuclear, all this stuff. The truth is, that was a mistake on their part, not liberals. You can't just create these kind of precedent and then expect, and I'm not excusing Harry Reid, and don't come and bring it back to me. Harry Reid did it too. Harry Reid did not do it for the highest judicial appointment in the land. It's shocking that Trump would want to appoint someone like Gorsuch, but I think he just did it to shut up the conservatives and then so he can move on to more terrorist type behavior. But the truth is, there's no reason for people to be upset about that. We didn't lose anything as liberals. The truth is, if Antonin Scalia didn't die, he'd still be on the bench, and we still would have a 5-4 court. We just ended up exactly where we would have been if Antonin Scalia was on the bench. So there's no reason for people to feel so completely demoralized, because the truth is, the resistance is fierce. Look what the resistance was able to do to Pepsi And literally a day, it was like the next morning you wake up, oh my gosh, does Pepsi just apologize? Pepsi puts in Kendall Jenner in this ad. The ad is allegedly supposed to create some kind of unity, but you see Kendall Jenner in the middle of a protest, walking in the middle of the protest with a can of Pepsi, walking up to the police and giving the police officer, and then everyone starts dancing again like all the world's isms and ills were resolved because this privileged girl was able to walk up to a police officer and hand him a Pepsi. Even the Kardashians have deleted anything that remotely even looks like it was affiliated with what Kendall had just done and that Pepsi ad. And that was because of the resistance. Ivanka's clothing took a deep hit, at least in the stores, and then all of a sudden they just pulled her. Uber. Look what happened to Uber. So the way I look at, and there's so many other examples of things that where you saw people just kind of standing up. And so the way I look at it is that there's not really much. Yeah, you might be able to make some judicial decisions that could affect people for generations. And I know they don't care about that. But more importantly is that if we are strong and we stay true to ourselves and the resistance stays strong, then there's nobody that can defeat the resistance. I mean, you're talking about like 350 million people in the United States, and what we have like 538 people in Congress or whatever it is. I mean, come on. You know what I mean? Like, we have 535 people, I think, in Congress specifically. And I mean, the Senate, Congress, 435 in the House of Representatives. We have 100 in the Senate. And then you have the president. So now you're looking at like a very small majority of support. So I would say, people, what you need to be worrying about more importantly is the fact that you need to keep the resistance going. There's only so much Gorsuch can do to us because the cases have to come to him. He can't just go seek out cases. And so we need to figure out a way to not get so emotional about things because we wanted a win-lose type scenario on every single situation. Someone has to win, someone has to lose, and everything is not a competition. This is not a competition. We're talking about real lives here. So if you have conservatives, or they call them cuck-servatives, the ones that sell out, or the rhinos or whatever, sitting there celebrating. It's like, are you serious? This has just ruined the GOP for good. Trump's not going to get a second term after the atrocities he's committed over less than 90 days. I mean, good God, does he need to go to rehab or something? I mean, there's something wrong. So keep the protest up. Stop feeling sorry for yourself because we're all going to be okay. There's millions of us that are going to be fighting back consistently every single day, whether it's on social media or it's on the streets or it's calling our senators or whatever. I mean, I'm trying to do things every single day to make sure that I do my part. I've been distracted, this entire election season because it is a distracting situation because you're looking at your entire understanding of the United States completely being decimated. Centuries and centuries of, not centuries, but centuries of building up a country to be this great superpower. It gets destroyed in less than 90 days. Oh. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, I'm about to sign off. I'm so tired, so I'm going to get off tonight. And until next time, this is Candor Talk Live. Make sure you come and see us every single Saturday if you can. I may not be there, and I'm going to try my best to make sure listeners understand. I may not be there on every Saturday, and sometimes I forget to go and tell you guys that I'm not going to be here. But the thing that I want you to understand is that we will continue to cover it. You can go to www.candortalk.com. Okay, go to candortalk.com and you can hear some more about us. And I wish you guys all a great day. Have a good one.